Hi and welcome everyone. Lisa here for Whimsy Stamps. Thanks for taking the time to join me. So today we're going to have a look at the Slimline Scalloped Pocket Die. We're going to use the pocket and the butterflies to create an ink blended card. Now I've already done a little bit of prep work here. I went ahead and cut out the pocket. I have a card base that's 4 inches wide by 8.5 inches long. I simply took a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. I cut 3 inches off of the 11-inch length to give me 8 inches by 8.5 inches, and then I scored that on the 4-inch mark on my scoreboard, folded it in half to create this card base. Now for the pocket, the die does all the work for you. It cuts the scallops, it does the nice piercing detail, and it embosses the lines, making it super easy to fold those flaps back to create that pocket. We're going to be using the butterflies. I have several of these cut out. I think I ran it through the die cut machine 1 or 2 times. And I actually had some extras left for another card I'm going to be sharing later on. Now I have Flight of the Butterfly Stencil by Whimsy Stamps, and I want to show you that these butterflies from the Slimline Scallop Pocket Die set actually coordinate with the butterflies on the stencil. But you'll notice there's a little space. The stencil is a little bit bigger than the butterflies. I'm going to show you how to make that work for you. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use a piece of hardboard to secure my card base to it because I want to tape off around the edges. Now I'm not putting down any marks to keep this straight. I'm just eyeballing it. But if you aren't comfortable with eyeballing it, just go ahead, take a ruler, put you some tick marks down so you make sure your tape is running straight. I'm going to go ahead and finish taping off around this. And I'm also going to bring the die cut pocket over and make sure that it's going to fit within the taped off area. And it seems to be great. So I'm going to finish taping this off and then we're going to start ink blending. So to do our ink blending, I just used the cloud from the grass and cloud edger dies from Whimsy and created my own little DIY stencil. And I'm going to do a rainbow background. Now this is something I don't think I've ever done, a rainbow cloud background. So let's see what happens with this. I'm using dye inks like I always do when I'm stenciling. You guys know how much I love the look of the dye inks. It gives such a soft look, but the edges are always so sharp and crisp. So I always prefer the dye inks. Now you could use distress oxides, distress inks, whatever you have available, you can use that. I'm just going to work my way down through the colors. I'm starting with red, going down through orange, yellows, green. I'm also going to do a little bit of like a turquoise color in there and down, and then down into blue all the way down this card base. And I'm going to stop where the pocket covers up. And then we're going to start to stencil our pocket to match our background. So to stencil this pocket, what I want to do is make sure that corner up there is matching up with the background. I'm going to go ahead, lay the pocket down on top of the card panel, and then I'm going to bring the stencil over, line it up, tape it in place, and then move it over to the side to go ahead and ink blend the green. And then I'm going to continue to do that down through the turquoise until I get to the blue, because once I hit the blue, it's pretty much going to be just ink blending it and I won't have to keep going back and forth with this. But I wanted this to match up perfectly with the corner up there. Now you could just totally skip this part and just ink blend all of it blue because it is a little bit of back and forth with this, but I thought it would be really neat to have that line up with the clouds that are already on the card base. So you're going to see me bring it back over now and make sure that it's lining up. I mean, and it was just the tiniest little bit that I needed to add the green to. And now I'm going to come in, adjust the clouds and line them up with what's on that card panel. Go ahead, secure it in place, and then bring in the turquoise color and stencil that next. And you're going to see when I take this back to the card panel how it lines up across the corner there with what's already been done. And I just think it was keeps it neat. But like I said, it's something you can totally skip if you want to. It's completely up to you. So for the grass, I'm coming in with pear tart. Now, the reason that I went ahead and left in between the top clouds and the where I'm stenciling the grass white is I want to make sure I'm giving myself enough room for my grass, and then I'll go back in and finish stenciling in those clouds. So what I did was I came in with pear tart first, and then I slid the stencil down and inked up again with pear tart. Now, every time I move the stencil, I slide it to the left or to the right to offset the pattern a little bit. Now, when I bring it back up to the top here, I'm lining it back up with the first pear tart that we laid down, and I'm just barely going in with bamboo leaves just to give the tips of the grass a little bit more color. I'm going to put a third row in here, and I'm going to use the bamboo leaves, and I'm pushing down and then into that pear tart on the bottom row. And you can see how we're getting that nice variation in those green colors there. And we just used 2 inks to do that. So now I'm just going to come in and finish stenciling off those clouds, and I'm going to come in with more blue, and then I'm following that with a very light lavender color and then a angel pink. It's a very pale pink to finish this off. And I want to also mention that in between each time that I switch up my inks or I'm moving stuff around and ink blending on my mat, I always take the time to wipe everything down before I move to the next step so that I'm not getting ink on the back of the card base. I'm not transferring ink to any place on the card where I might not want it. Here I had a tiny little bit of white, and I didn't want it to be quite so stark white, so I just came in with a light layer of that angel pink to cover up a little bit of that starkness. Here you can see we have the card base and the pocket all done up, and we're going to go ahead and start to add these little what I call flutter lines onto our card. I'm making sure that I have everything completely covered up on the stencil except for where I'm stenciling. That way I don't accidentally blend into an area where I don't want to. And I'm using black ink for this, but I'm using a light layer of it. Here you can see our first flutter line is right on the pocket, and I just secured the pocket in place with purple tape. I'm going to move the stencil up again, making sure everything is covered up around where I'm stenciling, and then I'm going to go in and do one more of these lines to continue this up to the top. Now that we have the flutter line stenciled, we're going to go ahead and come in and start to create our shadows of our butterflies. This might seem a little bit scary, but trust me, it's worth it. We're going to come in with black ink. I'm using Tuxedo Black. And you notice how I've taped off around my butterfly. That's so I know I don't end up inking up where I don't want to. You have to be very careful with that when you're doing this type of stenciling. And I'm going to work my way all the way down the flutter line. And I've started with 2 large butterflies, and then I start to go to the smaller size. But I'm going to end with a large butterfly again on this. And we're just going to work our way all the way down with that black ink. Now, each time that I change butterflies, I have to move the tape, I have to clean the stencil off. And remember, you want to clean the front and the back of your stencil off, making sure there's no ink left behind before you move this down to do your next butterfly. If you don't, you might end up getting ink, that black ink on your card base, and then it's just going to be either you trying to find a way to cover it up or starting over, and I would hate for that to happen. So here you can see I have all of those butterflies stenciled, and it's absolutely gorgeous just the way that it is. You could just leave it like this, stamp a sentiment, and let it go. But we're going to actually take this now off of our board since we're done, and we're going to grab the butterflies that we die cut, and we're going to ink blend them the same color as the clouds. So for the very first butterfly, I'm coming in with red and orange. And I'm going to put a little bit of red on the top of the butterfly and then blend some orange from the bottom up into the red. And we're going to do that with all of the butterflies, making sure that their color matches the color of the clouds that they're laying on. So my next butterfly is going to have orange and yellow on it. And then I'm going to work my way down to the third butterfly, and it's going to have some of that pear tart and that turquoise color. And then for the next butterfly, we're just going to follow that with some blues. And then the next one will have blue and then purple and pink to finish those off. So to adhere the butterflies, I'm using little round clear adhesive dots. And you can fold the wings up a little bit on it. It gives it some movement. I love the way this is turning out. Now, to finish off with details, I stamped a sentiment in the bottom right corner. You can see that I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink to do that. And I added some sequins beside each butterfly. Before I added the sequins, I came in and added some white and black splatters. I also used a fine tip black pen to go and frame out the whole inked up area, and it just made such a difference when I did that. So then, of course, one little sequin in the color of each butterfly going down our little line of butterflies there. So that's going to bring us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. For more information on the products I use, you can head over to the Whimsy Stamps website and check it out there. I have it linked in the description box for you. Please know how much we appreciate you guys, and until next time, take care.